But first, Australia, we have a problem, and that problem is wall-to-wall Labor governments. This country is going downhill economically because we are largely at the mercy of lazy, stupid, and worse, arrogant left-wing leaders. What they have to be arrogant about baffles me because on every metric they are failures. Thanks to their ridiculous woke priorities, their climate change insanity, and their hatred of all things Trump, we are stalled in a swamp of decline and inertia, while across the Pacific, America is undergoing an economic and cultural renaissance.
America is back.
So what can we do in Australia? Well, what we must do is use our precious vote at the ballot box to rid ourselves of Labor, the Greens and the Teals. That should be the sworn mission of every decent, right-thinking, concerned Australian citizen. And if you're a West Australian, that starts tomorrow morning. You have a clear choice between a lazy, stupid and arrogant Labor Premier who this week spat in the face of every hard-working West Australian who relies on US investment for jobs in WA, mining and agriculture, with his insulting dismissal of US Vice President J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance is a
knob. Sorry. You've got to have one unprofessional moment, don't you? That was it.
J.D. Vance is a knob. Yes, that was the Labor clown Roger Cook, who is currently the WA Premier. He was being asked to say the first word that came into his mind about J.D. Vance, a man who is working day and night to prevent the deaths of millions of Ukrainians and Russians, and he replied, knob.
Hi, I'm Brittany from PrettyHandyGirl.com. Have you ever wanted to change your outdated doorknobs but didn't know how? Today I'm going to show you how to do it in 5 minutes or less.
And I don't think it was that sort of knob. But Roger Cook has form when it comes to being offensive to the Trump administration, claiming that Donald Trump's victory on November 5th presented a dark road ahead for the world. Dark road? Trump has brought $3 trillion worth of investment into the US in just 4 weeks. How much investment has Roger Cook brought into West Australia? Or has he been too busy closing down projects, pushing woke Indigenous virtue signalling and standing by while the courts prosecute a farmer for building a dam on his own land? The ignorance and juvenile politics of this Premier shames the great state of WA. With his arrogance and stupidity, he risks jeopardising our AUKUS arrangements with the Americans, which are critical, and the trade relationships between the booming American economy under Trump and the mining and agricultural industries of WA. What a fool. But the good news for West Australians is they have an excellent Liberal alternative. For the first time in a long time, a woman, Libby Mettam, who has shown guts and determination. Listen to her being braver than any other Liberal in Australia, tackling the mad transgender cult head-on.
Within 100 days of gaining office, we will commence a comprehensive review to assess the impact of sex change treatments on children and teenagers. This is on the back of worldwide evidence pointing to long-term harm associated with the practices that are happening here in Western Australia. We will ban puberty blockers, cross-sex hormone treatments and surgical interventions for new parents, new patients under 16 undergoing gender transition following concerns about long-term harm. We will not continue to roll the dice with our kids' health.
But back to Roger Cook, a lightweight who's been totally out of his depth throughout the campaign. The knob gaffe wasn't the only gaffe in the live debate with Libby Mettam, which, in my opinion, he lost. He made a somewhat revealing slip of the tongue when he boasted he would always put Labor first, rather than always put the people of WA first. By contrast, Mettam has shown her mettle. She is tough and focused. She has a campaign team of about 15 compared to Labor's 90, over 90 staff. At the same business breakfast where Cook made his offensive knob gaffe, when asked to say something nice about Roger Cook off the cuff, Libby Mettam said he'd be great in opposition. That's almost classic Trump or Reagan right there. While the Labor Premier has ducked, dived and deflected, Libby Mettam has been across her brief and in the main been convincing, confident and competent. Best of all, she actually stands for things worth supporting. She won't stand in front of the Aboriginal flag, for example. Well done. Legalising uranium mining, absolutely fantastic. Cutting funding to the Environmental Defenders Office, absolutely. But best of all, along with the puberty blockers ban, she is fighting against the Aboriginal Heritage Act. This is that vile act which I've spoken about on Outsiders many times with Tony Seabrook. And that act is responsible for stealing farmers' property rights. Only the other day, a farmer, Tony Maddox, was convicted under the act for building a normal crossing over a creek on his own property because of some rainbow serpent called Wagil. You can't make this stuff up. Libby Mettam has relentlessly focused on the basics of state government, like fixing ambulance ramping, putting more police on the beat, making it easy to build a home, cutting taxes and fees. Great. Meanwhile, apart from insulting our American allies, even while an American sub is parked in Perth, so I think the Yanks will have heard about it, and the Chinese are busy encircling Australia with their own military fleet, what has Roger Cook and WA Labor been focusing on? Well, Cook has blown $13 billion on a budgeted $1 billion Metronet, a single-line rail to somewhere or other. Ridiculous bread and circuses type gimmicks like a new NRL team, a new race car track, a spaceport, free zoo entry, on it goes. And meanwhile, if you're a farmer, you can't concrete your own driveway without upsetting the waggle. But Roger Cook's arrogance and nastiness towards JD Vance wasn't a one-off for Labor in WA this week. Former federal Labor Minister Peter Garrett, who was also the lead singer of Midnight Oil, literally urged a Perth audience to imagine they were, quote, dancing on the grave of Gina Rinehart. I was sickened, and so should you be. Peter Garrett, apart from being a washed-up pop star and a washed-up politician, was the federal minister widely held responsible for the pink bats fiasco, a policy designed by climate change-obsessed lunatics to save the planet that resulted in a financial disaster and 4 dead, healthy young Queensland men. How dare this creep talk about dancing on anyone's grave, let alone Gina Rinehart's? Gina Rinehart provides jobs galore for West Australians, young men and women who get into the mining and agricultural industry. She supports farmers and agricultural industries from award-winning Bannister Downs dairy in the south to her world-beating beef cattle up in the north. She's at the forefront of jobs and mining technology right there in Perth, not to mention her charitable support for everything from the Royal Flying Doctor Service to helping our finest Olympians, giving so many young kids a break they would never otherwise have. And she puts her money where her mouth is and shares the profits and wealth with lavish gifts to her employees. But above all, Mrs. Rinehart is a fearless and passionate supporter of West Australia. And of Australia, and of all the values we hold dear. So make no mistake, when this pampered, lazy, stupid pop star Peter Garrett, remember he was a federal Labor minister under Kevin Rudd, and long before that he was noted for his aggressive campaigning against the United States. When this useless clown urges West Australians to dance on the grave of Gina Rinehart, he is urging them to dance on the graves of their own sons and daughters and of their parents and their loved ones. He is urging West Australians to destroy their own livelihoods and urging West Australians to impoverish themselves and their loved ones, and he is trashing every value the majority of West Australians hold dear. That, my cousins over there in WA, is Labor. And if you vote for Roger Cook tomorrow, those are the values you are embracing. So, can I just say to you, get on the phone tonight. If you're in a church group or a farming or a mining group, get on Facebook or whatever it is. Do it now, do it right now, and as soon as my show's over, and urge people to vote for Libby Mettam and the Libs and the Nationals tomorrow morning. And then we've got the federal election coming up, and WA, the rest of the country, will be relying on you.